When people are having interactions with faith, interactions with Christ, interactions with, God, a lot of people's first reaction is to be like this. Then comes the condemning and the judging and the fact-checking. I often wonder if you guys ever stop and take a pause and realize if this is how Jesus would react.
It is biblical to say, let's look at the fruit, let's assess the fruit of a person. But when people are coming into knowing Jesus, the fruit isn't always going to be there. And just like any plant, it takes time for a fruit to grow.
The public is not always so forgiving because you're not doing this behind the scene. You have hundreds of thousands of followers you're doing this in front of, then you're subject to public opinion. That's tough when you're walking your walk out in front of a lot of people. So it takes a lot of tough skin.
When it comes to a platform, how comfortable did you feel about your readiness to talk about what you've been going through?
I think.
So I've been experiencing something that ties in with what has always interested me and oftentimes turned me away from faith. When people are having interactions with faith, interactions with Christ, interactions with, God, a lot of people's first reaction is to be like this. Then comes the condemning and the judging and the fact-checking. And I understand the natural sensitivity to something you fiercely care about, something you fiercely believe in, and the instinction to then protect it. But I often wonder if you guys ever stop and take a pause and realize if this is how Jesus would react. As someone who grew up Christian, completely got away from the faith, and then has returned to more so following and deepening my understanding of Jesus and character, the reaction that's been spinning me has been, oh, well, anybody can sing about Jesus. Let's see if the fruit speaks. And my favorite response to that was, well, did you even pray for her first to have godly fruit before you said this? Isn't the goal here for everyone to find the love of God? Isn't the goal here that, I assume the goal is, that's what, you guys say sometimes, the goal is for everyone to realize they're a child of God and to find faith. And notoriously in the Bible, Jesus didn't do any of that.
That's an interesting take from Kalani. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I'm just want to start by saying I'm really happy to see Kaylani having these type of discussions publicly.
Sure.
I didn't realize that she was coming into a relationship with Jesus, so I'm really happy to see that. But also, I understand where she's coming from. I would consider myself to be a newer believer. I just came into true relationship out of lukewarm, living just last year. So,
amen.
And it's been a journey. One day. It's been a journey. But I agree with her. I do feel like one of the things that kept me from going back to church after years and years of just saying, you know what, that's just not for me. People are too judgmental. People aren't willing to really hear you out and understand what you're struggling with day to day, addiction or what have you. They're so quick to point out the flaw in you, point out where you haven't arrived to yet. And I believe that me experiencing an encounter with the Lord and feeling his love in a present moment, feeling his presence is what really turned me and said, okay, so Aaliyah, do you want this? Do you want this love, this relationship? Do you want to chase after this, or do you want to continue chasing after all of these things that have let you down time and time again? And so I do think that it is biblical to say, let's look at the fruit, let's assess the fruit of a person. But when people are coming into knowing Jesus, the fruit isn't always going to be there. And just like any plant, it takes time for a fruit to grow.
Yes.
It's a process. Sanctification is a process. And so we need to be gracious in that and just understand that it's not going to bear fruit in a month, 2 months. It could be a year, 2 years before we see a person truly grow and mature spiritually in their walk with the Lord. So I just pray that people hear where her heart was coming from, because I felt that just being a newer believer. Give me some time, help me along the way. rebuke in love. I want to be rebuked. I want to be corrected, but do that in love, not in pride and condemnation.
That's good.
So,
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that brings me to a question for you, because we've had that conversation a lot on this show. When it comes to a platform, how comfortable did you feel coming out? And I mean, you got the Pure Talks podcast.
Mm-hmm.
How comfortable did you feel about your readiness to talk about what you've been going through?
So I haven't launched a podcast yet. It's coming soon, a couple of weeks from now. But I did share a few public posts on my testimony coming out of a sorority, the Lord calling me out of Delta after 10 years nearly of membership, and just realizing that that was a demonic covenant.
Denounced this year.
I heard, and I was so happy.
Thank you. Last year. More gangbanging, man. I'm proud.
It was really tough. I think the mental battle of, because I was a people pleaser, I cared about what people thought about me. And so it was really tough to come out and publicly speak on it. And I was mostly afraid of the condemnation. I was mostly afraid of the opinions and the harsh words and responses of people. But the Lord really kept me through that time, that first 6-7 months of just coming out and saying, look, y'all, this isn't it. We've been deceived. I urge you to read the word, read these scriptures, go here, pray about it. And it only took one prayer of seeking God for wisdom and understanding as to why I was stuck in the rut that I was in.
Wow.
That night, God answered the prayer and showed me that I was a part of something, that these are the spiritual strongholds that are binding you to these issues, and you can have freedom, you can be redeemed, and he's done just that for me. So
hey, that's
Amen.
great. That's great. That's great.
I think with Kalani, I was looking at it. We talked about it on the call this week when I was still awake. I think the rough part about her and why she may be getting so much backlash is because we've seen her do like Santeria and do different things in person. And because of that, the public is not always so forgiving. And you have this huge platform and you're walking out your salvation or your attempt to follow Christ in real time in front of all these people who are following you for different reasons. So when people see this, they see you do it and see it, and now you switching up doing this, there are going to be people talking about it. People are going to have things to say because you're not doing this behind the scene. You have hundreds of thousands of followers. You're doing this in front of
millions.
Millions, and you're subject to public opinion. So that's tough when you're walking your walk out in front of a lot of people. So it takes a lot of tough skin. That's why I've always been a fan of, even if you have a huge platform, if you're doing this for real, to do it behind the scenes, because trying to follow Christ is difficult already when you're getting proper discipleship, because everything you told yourself yes to in your flesh, you are now learning that stuff you can't do. Now it's like I'm listening to the Holy Spirit tell me no to the things I thought was normal or just everyday things. So I'm becoming a new creature. So that's tough. Now imagine becoming a new creature with 1 million people giving their opinions on it at the same time. So that's why I always recommend doing that behind the scenes. That's where when you pop out with your platform, you can say, hey, I've gone through an extensive change. Like, God's been working on my heart, and you're more seasoned and prepared to do that, But what happens is, and I get it, people want them to go on the journey with them. It's like, you see me do this, now follow me on the journey, because it's like, if you're a fan of me, you support what I'm doing, let me show you what's really going on. Like, this is where my life is headed, and you want to show people. But sometimes if you don't have thick enough skin to deal with the scrutiny that come along with that, it's wiser for you to do that behind the scenes and then pop back out once you feel like you're in a place of maturity where you can articulate what you've been going through correctly.
Yeah, I agree.
Too. And I think too, I can see how that statement could have been offensive, but at the same time, I don't know why I feel like I don't think it was intended to be when they was like, hold on, y'all, the fruit gonna speak, because we are supposed to look for the fruit in people. We are. I don't think that that's a negative, condemning thing at all. And I thought that was pretty wise for the person to be like, chill, we gonna see the fruit. But at the same time, I think that there's some fruit that does take a long time to germinate, and there's some things that you will just notice and you'll see, like your spirit will agree with their spirit. Because even with Aaliyah speaking, I was like, oh my God. I wouldn't even have known she was a new believer, just the humility that is just oozing out of her or whatever, that is a fruit of the spirit. Amen. So it's like, and then I think also in the humility in that same breath, not to compare at all, but I'm just saying as far as what Kalani, you shouldn't be offended by people saying that they want to judge your fruit, especially if you understand what that means.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You shouldn't take offense to that, especially like Plain James has said, we've seen you, girl, operate as a witch. So, you shouldn't be upset with us for being like, whoa there.
Yeah.
Are you a wolf in sheep's clothing trying to play with us, or are you serious?
And it's also about, people inspecting your fruit because of the exposure that you may have in front of their kids. If I have a teenage daughter that loves her, then I'm like, and she's like, well, mommy, she's, daddy, she's following Jesus now. And you're like, all right, well, cool. Well, let me learn this on and see, if this is something I want you to, engage with. So it doesn't necessarily mean that she's being judged by people who are trying to inspect. Sean raised this question to me. He called me. We were having a conversation one day, and he was just like, if you met Tayana Taylor in person, what would your conversation with her be like? Would you hold her to the same accountability that you hold her to the show, or would the conversation be different? And I was like, man, that's good. I mean, I sat there and I thought about it for a minute. I said, I think I would still say what I said on the show, but I would let her know, like, hey, my only concern is, when you do these long prayers on these award shows, I said, you come back out and you do something else that's completely contradictory. I don't want my daughters to be deceived if I say, hey, this is somebody that you can look at that's following Jesus, and I'm okay with you, viewing her content. Now, I got young daughters, so they don't do anything social media right now. But my thought would be, you came out and you did this long prayer, Jesus don't play about me, this, that, and the other, but then you go on Twitter and you say, just let me get my back blown out, in private, please. And it's like, yo, like that was a week after the prayer. Why? I wanted my daughter to look at this, and now I can't let her look at this. That's to me.
It's
what people are doing.
I think that's what it is.
And maybe in private, like you were saying, like just develop that. Let the Lord develop your heart and your character for a little while, because that's honestly what I had to realize too. Like I had a platform, but I realized, like, you know what, there's a lot that I don't know about the nature of God. And should I be out here talking about this so soon, even though I'm real zealous right now and I want all my besties to come out of that sorority, fraternity, all those things. It's like, let me take some time to let the Lord develop me and grow me for a while. And then when he says, go, you're ready, then go. Because you're going to mislead people, going through your roller coaster of discipleship.
And you have an adversary, so you got to look at it. You got an adversary in the devil who's not going to just sit back and let you just come to Christ and be in peace.
Right.
So you got to deal with spiritual attack. Then you got to deal with the opinions of people. Then you got to battle against your flesh.
Yeah.
You got to battle with insecurities, doubts, and all kinds of emotions. Like, it's a lot to take on for one person. So it's cool to have community. It's cool to have discipleship, people who can really pour into you, so you're not doing this alone, trying to navigate it with just your platform of people who follow you for whatever reason. But they might not really care about you for real. Like sometimes people are just following you because you scratch an itch for them in a certain area. Like a lot of her music is sensual, you know what I'm saying? So they might just want that music to put them in that mode. You just don't never know what's going on. But if you know you have some people who are really trying to go the same direction, who are pouring into you spiritually, praying with you, walking you through this, like it's a different thing, it's a different tone, and it helps build you up, because Christianity is not something that's meant to be done isolated. It's meant to be done in a communal area. You know what I'm saying?